This is an introduction to the German subscription on dolanguages.com. We're going to look at Der Vorleser. So I've clicked on to the short description of the novel, where you might want to study it, and now we'll go into the course. A very favourite of mine. It's a fascinating book, and however the vocabulary I think is very difficult, or pretty difficult, and that's why you've got here, in common with all the literature on Do Languages, a page by page vocab list which gives a good head start. If you realize how long it takes to look up the vocabulary from just one page, you'll realize how useful that is for a student, and it's more likely to stop them running straight to the English version of the novel. So you then have two ways of following up on what the students have read, a kind of revision, I guess. The questions are set to elicit a good response, an individual response to what the students have read, which can be discussed orally in class and after preparation for homework. And then you have the summary, which involves converting the infinitive within the separate sections into the appropriate tense of the verb. So a very good recap of all the tenses, with some of the key vocabulary there down the right hand side, so that you can be fairly sure they're meeting all the words they'll need to get the quality of language marks. Another way of following up the content of the individual chapters is the picture version that I've put together, that I've drawn, and it has two pictures per short chapter in general, and the idea is that you get the students to recap what happens in the chapter looking at the pictures, and for those who are more visual learners, I think that can help retain what's in the novel. Clearly we want to be able to talk about the protagonists in some detail. There are frequently questions on character, comparing protagonists, etc. So we've provided a list of sophisticated character descriptions, and the idea is that students discuss with each other to what extent someone represents a particular adjective, and then there are various ways of introducing certain character traits into an essay there. Another thing I'm often asked on courses is how often should you use direct quotations? Well, we take quotations from out the book, and the students have to try to work out who said what to whom and when, and then there are a series of exercises asking them to put those quotations into indirect speech, which is a good way of using it in the essay, sometimes a little bit less obtrusive than using direct speech. A student I was teaching said to me, could we have a list of all the tenses with the same verb in each of the tenses? And I thought that was a really good idea, so I brought it into these resources. So you have a couple of verbs worked through in the different tenses, and the idea is that you perhaps get them to try a few more. just to get the tenses to sink in, which always takes a while. The so-called A factor looks at quality of language, and we've got the adjectives governing particular prepositions there, with sentences in the context of the novel to put together, followed by the passive, always a good one for going for quality of language, followed by relative clauses, which can cause problems all the way through. So examples there in all the different cases. We then move on to themes, and once again we have quotations to match up to the themes that my German writer selected, and you need to match them and put them into the separate a separate theme. In all the literature materials and cinema materials, we push the non-linear essay plan. So you have a schema demonstrating the way the essay paragraphs should work, and this is representing how the students should read the essay very carefully and then put their ideas down, keeping their ideas separate, adding ideas as they come, because the ideas don't necessarily come, of course, straight out of your head. Each idea makes them think of something else and something else, and sometimes the best ideas come later on in the planning process. So that's what we're pushing there, and the sample essay is of course based on the plan and is demonstrating a relatively short introduction with a conclusion, and with short paragraphs, relatively short paragraphs, to show them that it really doesn't have to be 800 words. You've got the mark schemes in Word and in PDF, so students can actually mark their own materials, their own homeworks. All apart from the questions, which that's intended to be an individual process. Then you've got an interesting background article on the Frankfurt trials, a description of Natzwiller-Struthof concentration camp, which is the one the protagonist visits, and that's basically it. So you've got plenty of materials to go out there. The idea being we're trying to keep things in the language, we're trying to develop quality of language, and these materials have been shown to achieve that.